So this recitation is about dataset and data loader. So basically, why do we need dataset and data loader is a very important question. So in this recitation, we are going to discuss about dataset, data loader, how do we load a dataset, how to get a custom dataset, how to use data loaders, and then I have done all this in an IPNB sheet to give an example. So I'll give an example with a toy problem and then how to use images for it. So basically, what is a dataset and a data loader? So what happens is the code can get very messy for the data samples. Now we want the code, a dataset, to be separated from the training data. In order to do that, we use dataset and data loader. So this functionality is provided by PyTalk. So PyTalk has provided us dataset and data loaders for this work. Now what is a dataset? Dataset is basically a sample and their corresponding labels are present. Now as the name suggests, what is a data loader? So basically now you will pass your dataset into the data loader, and how will you access it? Data loader will add a table on the dataset so that you can easily access those samples. Now this might look very confusing. So simple example is like this. If you see, this is a dataset of bird, dog, frog, cat, all these animals are there. What is the length of my dataset if I ask? There are 6. And if I ask what is the picture which is present at the 4th index, if I'm indexing from 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you put dataset 4, you get an image of a cat. Now first I would like to explain this with an example of a toy problem, and then we can go towards the images and how it works for images. Now as you see this, first of all, just forget what is a dataset and data loader. Basically, in this case, what I have done is I have created 2 variables, x's and y's. These are basically 2 lists. So this x's list has variables ranging from 0 to 10. It will generate numbers from 0 to, in the range 10, so 0 to 9. So I have 10 numbers here, and then from 10 to 20. So if you see, x's values are 0 to 9, so these are 10 values, and 10 to 19, these are again 10 values. Now I want to make a tuple, just a combination. I want to club my x's and y's value. So I use a zip here. So when I do this, I zip this x's and y's, and then when I give dataset 0, so it will return me the tuple which is at x0 and y0. So if you see this, 0, 10 came here. This is just basic PyTalk thing. Now there's nothing like dataset and data loader here. Now what is the length of the dataset if I ask? See. So if you see dataset now, basically what is my dataset currently? It is a zip of x's and y's. So basically I have paired my x's and y's values, so I have tuples. So there are 10 pairs. So that is why the length is 10. Now this is a normal functionality which we do in PyTalk. Now we want to use dataset, just a name, and use this functionality. So what I have defined is I have defined a class as my dataset. I have defined an init function, a get item function, and a length function. So what is the init function? Init function basically I'm initializing my list variables x's and y's. In get item, I will get the data at those index, whatever index I will pass, and the length will return the length of my number of samples in my dataset. So if suppose again I call my dataset class and I pass x's and y's which I've declared initially, so I get the same answer. So basically get item and length function and init function, these 3 functions work is described here in brief. So if I do length here, I'll get the length as 10. Now what is the data loader? Once you have defined a data set, now we want to use a data loader, so it has converted into a tensor. So if you print, you get the tuples as tensors. Now when we are using the data set, data can be in any batch size, it can be reshuffled. We want to do multiprocessing. So here I have given batch size as 2. So now I'll get a combination of 2 pairs 0, 0, 1, 10, 11. Now if I give shuffle, the values will be shuffled. Now this might look very simple in case it's just a list. So what happens in case of images? Now you will have images values here and their labels, corresponding labels, and the same thing will happen on images. So if you see here, now what happens is PyTalk has either you can use a preloaded dataset or you can use your own custom dataset. So there are many preloaded dataset. One is fashion MNIC dataset. This is actually it has 60,000 training samples and 10,000 test data, and it is a combination of grayscale images of size 28 by 28. So how do you load a dataset? Preloaded dataset. So how do you define it? So there are four variables: root, train, download, and transform. So how does it work in the sheet is? So here I have called the basic libraries which are required. Then I give root is equal to data. This is basically the place where the data will be stored. Train is equal to true means you have your training data. Train false means you have your test data. Download means you can download it from the internet and save it. And transform means the corresponding label transformation which is required. So once I do this, I download my data. Now, once your data is downloaded, you can iterate over your data using the training index. And you can use MATLAB plots to visualize it. So if you see 3 rows and 3 columns I've defined. And I'm iterating over the images. Now, in some cases, you need to customize your dataset. So, as I explained you with the example of init length and get item function, how does it work in case of images? So, this is init length and get item. So, in init function, basically, there's an image directory where images are stored. The image label is it's an annotation file, the CSV file where the labels will be stored, and then you have the transformations. And the length function will return the number of samples in the dataset, and get item function, within the get item function, basically you will get the sample at a particular index. Then using the read image, it will be converted into a tensor, and the self.image label will get the corresponding label from the CSV file. And you can apply the transformation if required. Once this is done, now we need to use data loader. Why do we need data loader? Once you have your data set, now you want to do various kind of processing on that. You want data in many batches, you want data to be shuffled. So now we have to use data loaders. So here I have given batch size equal to 64 and shuffle equal to true. So my images will be in a batch size of 64 and the data will be shuffled. So here see, the feature batch size is 64. And for more details, which has regarding all the examples, you can refer this link. Thank you.